episode of 13 Rings. We're adding a 14th ring here this week. David Taylor from Uplift is going to join us. We'll talk to him in just a minute. First of all, though, the background award, the most important part of the podcast. Coach Ty Slaughter ups his game yet again. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate it. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Nice.
Speaking of nicer guy or bigger legend, I think it's only fitting that we take the first moment of this podcast before we launch into our official rundown and talk about somebody who we lost in the Chicago basketball family, and that's the great Sonny Cox, birth name Landon Cox. Built King into a national powerhouse, meant so much to the city. I want anybody who has something to comment, I would love for you to just jump in and explain how big was Sonny Cox.
I'll go first. He was huge, especially at the time when I first got in. He was out of it, but he was still around a lot. And I remember us getting ready to play Oak Hill, and he was sitting there, and I just asked him, I'm like, man, what is this gonna be like? He was like, you fine, son. Just do what you've been doing, and you will be fine. He said, it's not a big thing. Don't make it like it's a life or death situation. Just do what you've been doing, and you'll be fine. And ever since then, he became to be like one of my mentors. I mean, he came to a lot of our games. He came and watched us a lot. We had a lot of conversations. And one thing that I did use from him or get from him is how much talent he had, and how was he able to manage that talent. So that kind of helped me out a bit.
Well, you know, I've been knowing Cox for a minute, and you know, when I first got into the game, and you know, once I started coaching, I always ask him a few questions or whatever. But he one thing that sticks out of my head all the time, he always say, "People gonna say what they gonna say, but keep doing what you're doing." He said, "No matter what, you know, when you're losing, they ain't really got nothing to say, but when you winning, they got a lot to say." So he said, man, just keep on doing what you're doing and keep winning, and, you know, treat the kids with respect. He said, always treat the kids with respect, and, you know, do all you can for them. And that's one thing I always, you know, seen what he did with his kids. You know, he used to pick them up, take them to school, you know, take them to different colleges to see campuses and everything. So, I mean, a lot of stuff changed back then, but, you know, seeing what he was doing with the kids he had and the best players he had, you know, he arguably had two of the best players that ever play in the state of Illinois, which is Marcus Living and Jamie Brandon, and, you know, all the other talent around him, how he meshed it together. You know, you can always get talent, but it's how you put it together. And he was able to put it together and had them buying into the system. You know, he had the 7-footers with Rashad Griffin and Tommy Hamilton. And who would have thought you could play two 7-footers together and beat people on the high school level? But he did it. He had a number of great players, but, you know, I just respect everything he did, and he paved the way for all of us on here. You know, he showed what it takes to be successful in the public league, and what it takes to be successful just in general in life. And, you know, I took a lot from him.
Well, I know one of the things that I'll say is that I did not have a personal relationship with Coach Cox because I kind of came on towards the end of his coaching tenure, but I had an opportunity to watch him, and I watched his program over the years just as a observer of high school basketball. And I think anybody that knows or watches or has watched high school basketball for a period of time, all you can do is have respect for what he did as a basketball coach. But ultimately, when you hear the reviews and the things that his former players have spoken about him, I think that's the bigger part to him, what he did and the relationships that he built with his players. I had one instance to actually meet him away from basketball. He lived in my neighborhood, and I happened to go to a cleaners that he was coming out of one day, and I happened to be coming in the door when he was coming out of the door, and he stopped to hold the door for me to allow me to come in. And when I looked up and recognized who it was, I said, there's no way that I could allow the king to hold the door for a little old servant like myself. And he kind of chuckled and he laughed at it. And he knew me from coaching. He had seen me coach. And we had a very short conversation. And I just asked him how, to Rob's point, how do you get all that talent to play together? And what he said to me is very simple. He says, make sure that everybody understands what the goal is, and ask if they want that goal. And if you want that goal, these are the jobs and these are the things that you have to do. If they're willing to buy in, they'll play together, and ultimately you have an opportunity to win. I think he's done something that I don't know how many other coaches in high school have done it. I think it's very few, if not any of us, I can say, that has had an undefeated season. You know, I don't even think Rob has done that. So it's obvious that he was a great coach. Because Rob, you don't have any undefeated seasons, do you?
None.
See, I knew it. So that automatically tells you that he's a great coach. He has an even undefeated season. But again, very seriously, when you look at Coach Cox and what he did, and Coach Rob and I were talking about it the other day, so many of those giants of the game are no longer with us. And I think when I look at those guys that are on the screen today, we have an obligation to really take the mantle and carry it to the next generation of young coaches. And then if we do that, then we will honor Coach Cox, Coach Hambricks, Coach Michaels, all those guys, Coach Redmond, all those guys who have blazed the trail that we today track.
And not only the basketball side too, that he was an accomplished musician, and probably set a lot of fashion trends in Chicago too, with those great pinstripe suits that he had too. So
he was definitely the best dressed. Ain't nobody gonna beat him in that.
No.
He always wear them two-piece suits.
Sharp,
people that know
and his hat game.
Say that he was a phenomenal, that he was a far better
game.
musician than a basketball coach. So that's incredible.
Even from my humble perspective, like Coach Slaughter, I didn't have a personal relationship with Coach Cox, but if you grew up in Chicago, played high school basketball in Chicago, most notably the public league, then you knew exactly who Landon Cox was, and you knew about his teams at King. And many things stand out in my mind about his teams at King. The first thing that stands out, of course, is all the talent. And then them winning and being in contention for state championships. And we're talking about being in contention for state championships year after year when the public league only sent one team downstate, and that was the champion. Yeah. And so for them to be, looking at going downstate year after year and having that as a goal kind of lets you know about what type of coach he was and the type of talent they had. And the second thing that really sticks out in my mind is the gear. Right, like I was in high school when those teams and them King teams was mopping everybody and competing with Simeon for that crown to go downstate. But the gear, the Nikes and all the fresh jogging suits and I think one year them dudes set a trend and was like hooping in biker shorts or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So those things stand out. If you grew up watching public league basketball, played in the public league, and now, coaching the public league, his imprint on the game and on this city it goes beyond just the court. And like I said, I didn't have a personal relationship with him, but many things about his program and the way he did things stick out. And a young coach like myself, well, maybe not so young, but when I started out, a lot of things I wanted to emulate the way that he did it when he was the coach at King. So his imprint is firmly in this city and on public league basketball and in the hearts of many people.
And to go into piggyback a little bit, what
please.
Taylor said, me and Coach Ty was talking after the Cox situation, and we kind of figured out, and we have to go back through it just to see, but I think I've only did it once. Remember we talked about this with what Taylor just said of winning the city championship and going downstate and winning it. I think I did it once. Nick, have you ever won both?
No, I ain't never did it.
Wow.
So since then, it's probably, I think Chris Head they didn't go downstate, but they won city. But
Westinghouse.
I'm the only
one.
Well,
when he won state though. When he won state, he would have had to won city.
Yeah, he did. Well, that situation. Yeah, I'm saying he was the only one besides me. I'm saying in the new format.
Oh.
It's
not. No. I would have 0 state championships under the old way. Yeah.
Wow.
So that kind of goes back to what we was talking about. Which one is harder to do?
Right.
Some people did not win city, but went downstate and won the state championship.
Right. Because I won city and then I lost state, so it's like
right. That was we talked about that last week, and it's good that you brought it up because we were saying, and then our general conversation on the first podcast was like, you know, which one we thought was tougher. So guys, I mean, of course, I've won in a city a couple of times, but did not win state, and then some of the times that I won state, I did not win city. Right. And that's when Nick was winning city, and he was like, that was more important.
Well, he probably, but Nick probably said city was more important because he didn't win state. That's why.
I know,
so he'll always bounce it back if he doesn't win one or the other. So it's all right.
Absolutely.
I know, but you know what? And you know, so Rob, is true. We did talk about it. When you think about it, that's incredibly difficult to run that gamut to get through the city and then go through the state. I mean. So it's something to be said about what Coach Cox did back in that era. And then we even talked about it. We looked at Coach Ping and we looked at Coach Hambrick. And I think those guys only won during that time. It might have only been 2 combined, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Because how many did Coach Hambrick win? 1. So he would have only won 1. And then Coach Ping won 1 before. And then he won 1. I think he won 1 or 2 in the new era. But you just think about that. Look how difficult it is to win. And Coach Ping didn't have to win city, of course. But so Coach Hambrick would have been the only other coach. He and Coach Cox, I think, that would have won state in the beginning, the other era. Yeah. And they had to win city.
Yeah. And Coach Stanton might have been in that category too.
Yeah.
Yep, he did because he went. You're right. And Coach Stanton, we talked about it. He and Coach Fate are pretty much the only 2 from that era that are still with us, I think.
I was just about to say, Stanton did it too, right?
Yeah.
Yep, he did too. He went down twice and he lost the second time or the first time and came back and won the second time.
Yeah. And another thing to piggyback on what DT was saying, Cox always say, if you look good, you play good.
Well, now let me say that. I'm not so sure I believe that because we try to look good, but we don't play very well. So I don't know about that.
Hey, that's what he said.
I said that too, but it doesn't work. So I'm gonna start trying to look
good, you play good. So,
debunking the myth here today.
That's why I try to get my team the best gear, man. They say you look good, you play good. Sometimes that don't work though.
Your team has the best gear. You are second best probably in shoes, but we'll keep going.
Well, Mr. David Taylor, today you are in the spotlight here. We want to talk about your story and what you've built at Uplift. Shout out to Uptown here. The Titans were the 2015 2A state champions, went 28-5 that year. Such a special year, and you've built something really special going back to 2006 there. I want to know, what was your very first taste of Chicago basketball? Where did you grow up? Who did you look up to?
I grew up in Uptown. I grew up on the north side, very nearby Uplift. And who I looked up to at the time, I mean, The Last Dance is on TV, right? So everybody's seeing the cat that I looked up to. And, most young dudes in Chicago at that time looked up to Mike, right?
Judd Bushler.
Judd Bushler, yeah. Steve Kerr, Dave Corzine. Dave Corzine was my hero. Yeah. So, Mike, Scotty, those dudes are my heroes. And in the public league, when I was a younger cat, how when you're in 7th and 8th grade and you look up to older cats, those older cats were like Lavertus Robinson, and dudes that played for King Benji, of course, that played at Simeon. So those were the people that I looked up to and associated with success in basketball.
And then how did you get your start at Uplift? It's 2005, turning into 2006. What was that opportunity like, and how did you land the job, and how did you get going?
I was actually the Farsoft coach, the JV coach at Lincoln Park in 04, 05. And kind of in the middle of that season, a few of my friends who were on the RFP team, which is a proposal that you write to either get a school in Chicago, public schools, or to convert like an elementary school to a high school, which is what Uplift is. It used to be a middle school. It kind of converted into a high school. So a few friends of mine, teacher friends, were on the RFP team that was writing the proposal, and they asked me if I would be interested and joining the staff and, you know, starting a basketball program. And I told him, of course. And so once the season ended at Lincoln Park, I, you know, shift my attention and focus to trying to start and build a program at Uplift.
So Jeremy Montgomery, was he a point guard back then for Lincoln Park?
He was.
I remember watching him play. He was good.
The Montgomery brothers. Actually, Michael Thompson was on that team. I don't know.
That's right.
Bruce Thompson. Yep.
Oh,
there was a lot of talent at Lincoln Park that year. I was only there for 1 year, but there was tons of talent in the building for sure.
And Juice is still playing, which is super cool. So let's go through that year, that 2015 run that you made. You beat Warren by 22. I think that school's got about, 8 times the enrollment that you do? You beat Lane Tech about 7 or 8 times, you know, the size of your school. You beat Roosevelt out of Gary by 24. You beat Whitney Young High School, the Dolphins. And so you beat up on some teams that were much bigger. And you had guys like, you know, did a little scouting. You got Jeremy Roscoe, ended up playing at Akron. Spencer Foley ended up playing at Canisius, and I think he transferred after that. But what made that team special? What made that run to the 2A state championship special?
They bought in, you know, like you can have talent, which we had with that group, but they bought into each other. They bought into the stuff that I was trying to teach and kick to them. You know, they bought in. They did not fight me. You know, I've had teams fight me on, man, this style doesn't fit us. You guys are nuts, man. I've been around basketball much more than you just listen. But they did. They bought in, and I think that was the biggest key to that run. Just those guys believing in each other, believing in the stuff that I was trying to teach, and they just went forward.
And you got Demarius Jacobs and Marcus Jacobs, of course. What's been the most fun in since that state championship run for you?
Since the state championship run, the most fun.
Jacobs and.
I would say the most fun would probably be the run. So Marquise Jacobs was a sophomore. We had some issues, he and he had to be suspended for that state run. So that would have been 16, 17. But the year after that was a lot of fun. When Marquise was a junior and his brother when he was a sophomore, and his brother was a senior. That year was a ton of fun. Yeah, we lost to Orr in the 2A sectional championship, but that team with the athleticism and watching those guys, they averaged about 6 or 7 dunks a game. So it was just a lot of fun watching them play. I wish they were a little more disciplined, but athletically, that was a fun group to watch. It was exciting, and it was a lot of points being put on the board every game.
For one of the other 3 guys here in the room here, what's one thing that the Coach DT has done that you admire? What's one way that he's been successful with his program?
Well, for me, he took a program, you know, and made it into a program. We kind of all were got into programs that were already kind of a little bit established. So he took a program from nowhere and made it into a respectable place here in Chicago, which, you know, that's not easy to do. And it's been going on year in and year out since he's been there. And of course, for us, you know, we all got a great relationship as well with him. And one thing I do like about, he asks a lot of questions. He don't have a problem with asking. He don't have a problem with calling and asking. You know, if stuff he don't know, he reaches out to try to figure it out. But just to build a program up like he did, and all of us, as well as took our programs to the next level. You know, they were programs, but there's no disrespect to the people who was in front of us, but we have took our programs to the next level nationally, you know, and that could be the next step for him is taking a program to a national level. But just to get the respect inside of Illinois and in the public league from coming from a build-up program to where he's at now is huge for him and the school.
Yeah, and then, you know, one thing about coaching and Uplift, nobody don't want to go over there and play. You know, so he built a program that was basically nothing and built it to something. And the thing I really respect more about him, he probably don't even know this, the kids he coached and the personalities they got, he managed them so good. You know, I coached a few of his players, and, you know, the discipline piece that he teach them and having them, you know, buy into his system. you know, because Uplift could be anybody on any given day. You know, he a proven coach. He won state championship. I know I don't like going over there and play, so I don't want to go over there and play at all. But
Appreciate that, Nick. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Compliment.
but he just a all around good guy. You know, he a humble guy. You know, just like all of us, a humble guy, and he just get the best out of them kids. You know, we sort of in the same type of environment where we probably don't get the best kids, but once they leave out of there, you'll know about them. And you know, he had a couple guys like that, and
you got multiple 4 and 5 stars in your program. You can't play the underdog card.
I turned him into that. So, but he do an excellent job over there at Uplift.
That's awesome.
You know, for me, he's in my conference, and let me just, I've got to go back. He beat me by 3 in a third place game. We've never played a third place game in CPS, so I don't even accept that loss from him. I'm gonna put that on the record.
It's under protest.
No,
yeah, that was a tough run because the Rob is the team that put us out of city playoffs that year, and then we wound up having to play with Whitney Young in that third place game, and that was a tough game. I mean, that game was tooth and nail all the way, and we wound up winning by 3 on a play at the end of the game with like 12 seconds left. And so I think if I remember,
it's my turn. Wasn't I talking? Well, why does he take my time? Why does he take my time? He's just drudging up all of those old memories, But,
that was a great game. I remember that being a great game. Nail biter.
It was much greater for you than me, but it was still a great game. But I've actually known Tone for many years. I knew him back when he had dreads. You know, that's a while ago when he had like long hair, and he was a sophomore coach, and he was an incredibly intense individual. But I have seen the transformation from being the sophomore coach to being a varsity coach, like the other guys have said, to a guy that's taken over a program that was pretty much nothing, and he's built it. He's been the lone person there. He's kind of galvanized those players on that end of the city, which, you know, he's done a really good job of keeping those kids in that area and growing the program. And he took it to a state championship. I think so many times a lot of us discount the job that people do in difficult circumstances. And his was difficult not because it was difficult, but it was difficult because it was new. It was new and he had to build it. And one of the things that we were talking about before we even started this today was what you see in programs that are successful invariably is going to be stability. Whether it's a business, whether it's a school, whether it's a family, if there's stability, the program has a chance to be good. And that's what Tone has actually brought to Uplift. He's brought a stability to him. Tone is the coach at Uplift. You know what you're going to get. He's a phenomenal guy. I mean, I've never called him for anything that he's not been willing to answer, to say yes, or can I help you? Whenever he's needed me, I'm going to be there for him just like I would for any of the coaches. And it's just great to have another young man that's leading people. And he's an educator. You know, he's dealing with his young boys, young men, turning them from young boys to young men. And ultimately, they're proud to be able to say they played at Uplift, and he's proud to be able to say that he coached them at Uplift. And I think at the end of the day, that's what all of us, you know, we're sailed to be able to do and to be to our young people. And so it's great to have him. It's great to have him here. And it's great to have someone here with less championships than me. So great.
He's got the sharpest background. He's on
Can I just say, because, you know, I'm in this podcast with 3 of the most accomplished coaches in the Chicago Public League and probably in the Public League's history. Multiple state championships in this group, multiple city championships in this group. And just as Ty alluded to, I just have one, and that was a magical season for us. And I'm humbled to be in the presence of these 3. They're great men, great leaders. I didn't know that they thought these things of me, so I'm flattered, I'm humbled, and I'm serious. And I thank y'all. I thank y'all very dearly because, you know, this work we do with these young men is important. You know, it's important stuff.
And again, I think, Tone, and maybe because you're like on the other end of the world, we don't have an opportunity to kind of run in each other's paths oftentimes, but what you see here is what we talk about all the time. We're all in the same fraternity, and I think that for all that we compete on the court, we all work together off the court. And I just have one favor of you. we come to you this year. Can you guys get those lights fixed? We can get some better lights. I mean, that's all I ask. I've got to come to you this year. So.
Hey, listen. I got some news for you, brother. Them lights have been repaired. We got new lighting.
Wow.
Brand new.
Great. So we'll be able to see. We'll be able to see now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
God working.
Yeah, he get them boys playing hard, boy. I remember we played them in the Proviso West shootout. I said, man, these boys ain't gonna quit, huh? You know, they don't quit. He get them boys playing hard.
And now we can see. Now we can see.
56. So. Oh yeah, that is bad. That's bad. Now you might actually know where you're shooting the ball.
Yeah, we can see a little bit. So.
That's awesome. Well, guys, should we transition to the debut of the mailbag?
Fine.
Oh boy, the mailbag.
I got a bunch of questions here on Facebook, Twitter, text, Facebook Messenger. So a lot of people. I think we probably have time for 2, maybe 3, depending on how this goes. I want everybody listening at home to know that they have no idea what they're about to be asked. And we wanted it to be that way. So this is going to be a surprise to them. And you do have the option to pass. Well, we'd appreciate some honesty here. Question number 1. Evan Collins asks, was D. Rose at one point seriously considering Illinois? There was a rumor that he and Eric Gordon were both going to go to Illinois. Evan asks, was he seriously considering Illinois?
Yes. No, I don't know.
That is a true fact. Him and Eric Gordon were definitely thinking about going to Illinois after they teamed up for Mean Streets and AAU. Mm-hmm. And they both, they had played together. They had thought about going to Indiana. They all thought about going to Illinois together. That did happen. Those conversations did happen about them going. And he did really think about going there. He really did.
Then Eric Gordon commit first or something? Didn't he commit and then decommitted?
He was committed to Illinois initially. Yeah. And a lot of fans thought that they weren't kind of in cahoots together because they thought, Eric Gordon took his spot, so to speak. And then that's why Derrick Rose went to Memphis. But you're saying that it wasn't the case, that they did want to play together, possibly.
They did want to play together. They had played together that summer in AAU. Mm-hmm. So that's what kind of got it, going and thinking about going to play together, in college because they played together in AAU and they were so successful that year. I think they ended up beating Kevin Love and whatever the name of that group, whatever the name of that team was. I don't know what
Brandon Jennings?
Yeah, they had Brandon Jennings. They had O.J. Mayo. They had that whole team. They ended up beating them, and they was together. So they did think about it at one time, and Illinois was the place. And I think Indiana was another place that they thought about going together.
And this is probably something that only Derrick could answer, but what threw that off? Did Illinois make a mistake? What threw off that possible package?
No, I don't know. Now that I don't know.
Okay.
That part I don't know.
We got it here. Look over your right shoulder and let's ask the picture. D. Rose.
You see how he looking? He's not going to say.
He said no comment. Yeah. We'll leave it at that. Thank you so much. Awesome. Second question. This comes from Tim Allen, a really good up-and-coming coach in the Springfield area. He coaches at Sacred Heart Griffin, the Catholic school in town. He says, what downstate programs do you respect? Any downstate rivalries you can think of? And I'm going to add to this. What's the toughest game you've ever gotten from a team in Illinois outside the Chicago area? I know, Nick, you went up against Lincoln in the state championship game.
I think Lincoln's probably our toughest battle.
2014.
Yeah, we was down going into the fourth quarter. We was down and, they had 1 million fans there. It was crazy in there. And, he did a good job of preparing and they stuck to the game plan 100%. And, they was tough. And Springfield Southeast was good. They gave us a game too, hard-nosed group. And I say probably them two.
So 2014 and 2018, I believe, is when you played Southeast, I think, in the finals.
Yeah.
Very cool. How about anybody else? Is there a game? I know, Coach Taylor would love to ask you about playing against St. Teresa. Christian Williams, 6'6" guard, ended up going to Iowa and Indiana State. What are your memories of playing against that St. Teresa?
Oh yeah, he gave us the entire first half was the Christian Williams show, and you know, we really couldn't. I thought, you know, on paper we were more talented than them clearly. But he, you know, they ran their stuff, and he was the focal point of that stuff, and he got busy. I think he might have had 15 at halftime. He wound up with like maybe 18 or 19 for the game. So we clamped him down. We went to his own actually in the second half, so we can keep track of him a little better. And that kind of worked out because he wasn't the best shooter at the time.
Coach Rob, did you play Carbondale for one of the championships? I'm trying to think, going back to like 06. Was that against Carbondale?
That was that was before me, I think. I can't remember.
How about in any
That
showcase?
might have been when Coach Hambrick was there, when they had the little guard.
Yeah, I can't remember. Did he go to? I think he went to SIU. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, we played them. They had the little small guard. That was when Coach Hambrick was the coach.
Okay, I couldn't remember what the timeline was there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was on the staff, but it was a really good game. Of course, I mean, they beat us, but it was a really good game, and he was really good. The little guard was really good. They had a good team.
And it's different for, you know, the 4A schools. You don't really interact with a lot of other schools outside of the Chicago area, because almost, 95+% of 4A schools are in Chicago. I think the only 8A schools in Illinois outside of Chicago are like O'Fallon and Belleville East, maybe, and Edwards.
I was able to play O'Fallon downstate when they had the Roosevelt kid that went to some kid in Roosevelt. We was able to play them in state championship. That's when Derrick was there, so it was, you know, I think it was at 07 actually, state championship. We ended up playing O'Fallon.
I think the most epic showdown between City and Downstate, maybe of all time, was 2002 with Westinghouse and Landfair when they had Rich McBride and Andre Iguodala. I went back and scrubbed through that game. It's all on YouTube. You can watch the full thing, and there was some amazing talent in that game, and it went down to the wire too. So pretty exciting stuff in 02.
Yeah. We ended up playing Mark Smith's team in Edwardsville in the sectional.
You did, okay.
Because they had moved us, and we were going further south to play. So we ended up playing them in the super sectional, which was a good game for the most part.
You played them downstate, right? Like, where you play them at?
I had to go to ISU. I went to Illinois State.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah, I played them 1 year. I played Normal 1 year. I played a couple teams from that area because that's where my super was at for some time. So I had a chance to play some of those teams. And then, of course, I played Belleville West 2 years ago at O'Fallon.
All right. I think we got time for one more question. Coach Ty, I bet you're giving the funniest answer to this. Adam Portscheller is at Adam Ports 22 on Twitter, says some of the craziest recruiting stories would be fun. So I don't know, what's the craziest thing that a recruiter has ever asked you to do or a player to do that you're willing to share?
Well, you know what? It's funny because the recruiting process in and of itself is crazy. I mean, and especially for those guys that have had high caliber players. I was telling someone the other day, I think one of the most impactful recruiting situations I've ever been involved in was watching Coach Cal come into the gym and actually recruit. I mean, it's different. You know, I've been fortunate as a lot of the other coaches. I've had Coach K in the gym, and that's pretty spectacular given who he is. And he came with 5 coaches, and, you know, the entire staff was there while they were recruiting DJ. But when Coach Cal came, you know, hey, the family's here. Can we, you know, meet in the office? Sure, come on in. He comes in. He's got on his Ferragamos. He has no socks on. You know, he's got his pants on. He sits down. He starts asking the questions, very respectful. This is what we offer. Is this what you want? If you want this, this is what we offer. This is what Kentucky is. That's it. I'm like, there's got to be more. Is there not any more that's coming? And there really wasn't any more. He was pretty matter-of-factly about what they do, how they do it. If you are this particular player, this particular person, you can play at Kentucky. And if you're not, Kentucky's not the right place for you, and you're not the right person for Kentucky. And for me, the questions were really kind of impactful, but they were to the point. There was no beating around the bush. He wasn't trying to make friends. And I'm not saying he was being mean or ignorant, but there was not a lot of fluff. It was pretty direct and to the point. And then I think for me, in the whole process of recruiting, you talk to so many different coaches, and as I tell people all the time, I tell all coaches, you don't have to recruit me. I have no eligibility. The person that you need to impress and impact are the players and their families. Those are the people that are ultimately going to play for you if in fact you're successful. And I always tell people, Kansas. Why did I just lose his name? Come on, help me. Kansas. Bill Self. I don't know why and that's my point. I saw Bill Self about 4 years ago in Las Vegas, and he asked me how my daughter was doing by name, and I had not talked with him maybe in 10 years. And I always tell people, whenever Bill Self was a guy, to me, he always remembered me, my name, my children's name, and I only have two, but he would mention them by name, and I thought that was always just kind of interesting. But nothing out over the top crazy. Is just really kind of the way a lot of these guys go about what they do. What they do, and it's been interesting in that regard.
So how does Coach Cal and Coach K contrast in terms of their style?
The way I kind of look at Coach Cal is kind of a guy that you would probably sit at a bar with and have a drink, and he just kind of tells you the way it is. And you look at like Coach K, he's more professorial, more kind of, this is the brotherhood, this is what we do, and the same, but just in a different direct way. You look at, and I don't know, this is not a negative by any means. I think people look at Coach K with more reverence than they do with Coach Cal. Coach Cal seems a little more like you can meet him, Coach K, and not so much for me, because I don't really try to meet any of them in that regard, but you're more starstruck by him. That's Coach K. Versus, man, that's Coach Cal. So it's kind of, oh man, that's Coach K. That's Coach Cal. It's different. And I often tell people, this is funny, and I know this is going to kind of seem kind of weird, but I always I go back when Coach Hambrick was coaching and Coach Cox. Pretty much the same kind of guys in the sense that they wanted to win, but people viewed them differently. Mm-hmm. But they were kind of the same in some ways. And I don't know them personally. I know them from the peripheral, but people kind of viewed Cox one way and they viewed Hambrick another way. Kind of like Coach K and Coach K and Coach Cal. Man, that's Cox. Oh, that's Coach Hambrick. Wow.
That's a good analogy. I've never thought of it that way. I think that seems really fitting.
Yep. I've kind of looked at it like that. Yep.
All right. So Coach Rob or Coach Nick, what are some more, well, if you want to jump in on the Cal versus K thing, maybe first.
Well, I'm like Coach Todd. That's what he hit was right on point on how they act. But he said something about Coach Cal that Coach Cal personally told me. I'm not here to get you. I'm here to get him. We ain't going to be, I ain't finna tell you I'm taking you to dinner and all those type of things. I'm not doing that because that's not it. I'm here to get him and him only. Now, I respect what you're doing with him. I respect your program. I've been watching it. I understand it. I know who you are. When I see you out, it's fine. It's cool. We talk. But I'm here to get him. This is my job, is to come and get him, not to be sitting around going, taking you to dinner and doing all those things that some other people actually, I think sometimes not mess up the recruiting, but they're not doing their job because they're trying to woo me, and it's not my decision. I don't have a say in it. It's between them and the parents. So just that, and then the year when we had Jabari and we had open gym, and it was something out of Blue Chips. Because you had every head coach in the country sitting there because we had it was his junior year, so you had Steve Taylor, you had Kendrick, who was just coming on the scene, plus you had Jabari. I mean, Coach K comes in with a limo, and like Coach Ty say, with his whole coaching staff. Coach Cal is there, Roy Williams is there. I mean, you name them, they're all there. So I got people in the bleachers almost like a game. I want to charge it. Like everybody go out and come back in, but we had the whole side where the coaches sit at just lined up with all the blue bloods. I mean, everybody's there. And it just was funny to see. So now when we have open gym, that's kind of how I start off with the team. Like, if it ain't no coaches over there, then we really ain't that good. I stayed in lined up when everybody was there. So if they ain't in here, we got to get to work, fellas.
Right.
That's just that part of it. And myself, and I don't know, I can't speak for nobody else, but I have learned in my time to step away from the recruiting part and let their families do that. What I do is if you have something for me to help you with, then I will help you. But that's not my thing. It's not my child. It's not my decision. I don't want nobody saying, you told me to go to this school and it didn't work, and then now you looking at me all funny. So now if it doesn't work and we want to do something different, hey, come back, let's regroup and we'll find something else. But I kind of stay back from the recruiting part. You get some parents who want your help, and then that's when you help. You got some that wants to be in the forefront of it all, and that's fine too, because that's their child. And I think that's who should be in the forefront of it, because it's a family decision that needs to be made. Right. And if they want to add the coach in with that decision, I think that's fine too. But I'm not the type of guy who wants to be in the forefront of it. You know, of course, we all know it's stuff we have to do on our end at the school part as far as transcripts and all that. But all the calling me and doing all that, I got some other stuff I can be doing besides that.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a page out of Rob's book on that one.
Yeah, I gotta hear that.
I really don't get involved in people recruitment, because at the end of the day, the kid got to be there and the family have to be there. And you know, a kid, I don't never want a kid to say, "Well, Nick, you told me to go here." No, I don't get into that, and I don't even want that on my conscience, because I know if it don't work, because I know, you know, some places that tell you anything. You know, college coaches will tell you anything just to get you on their campus. And then when you get there, it's a different story. So, you know, like I always tell them, you know, make the best decision for you. Make the decision based on, you know, if they're going to let you play the way I let you play. And you know, you just got to want to be at that place. And I don't want that on my shoulders as a kid coming back to me 4 years later and say, why you tell me to pick that school and it didn't work for me, you know. So, you know, what worked good for me may not work good for you. So that's the approach I always take it. And, you know, some schools I really like, and some schools that I know they just be talking. So, you know, it's for them to figure it out. You know, I give them the pros and cons based on, you know, the way they play for me. You know, the question I always ask them is, you know, do they play the same style we play, or is it similar? You know, do they make 20 passes before they shoot? Because most guys come out of my program want to shoot the ball. You know, so it's
wonder why.
You're right. You know, you know, I give them a lot of freedom, and you know, that's the thing I always tell my players, and you know, I don't like players going into the transfer portal all the time, but you know, if the situation ain't right, then it ain't right. But you know, I try to tell them, go somewhere where you gonna be there for 4 years and be successful. I never say 1 or 2 or 3, because it ain't gonna happen. You know, most times when freshmen go in, they only gonna take 2 to 3 shots unless you a Jabari Parker, unless you a Jaleel Okafor, unless you're a Wayne Blackshear. So, you know, so you're gonna get more shots than others. So you can't put yourself in situations where you're not gonna be successful. And that's my approach to it.
Who do you think is the most misunderstood coach out there that has, you know, maybe a reputation for not being a great guy or something, but really was personable to you? Who is somebody that surprised you, Nick?
Well, the guy for me, and he's my favorite coach of all times, and, you know, it's Tom Izzo. You know, I'm a big Tom Izzo guy because, you know, he fiery just like I am. He built his players up. You know, he talked to them. He more like a guy that they could relate to. And I always, you know, love everything about what he did. do and what he's doing now. And, you know, I always pick his brain every time I see him and just talk to him. You know, I went by practice a few times to and watch him at work. And the one thing I love about him, he's passionate. He's passionate and he cares about his kids.
Coach DT, I know, you know, with Marquise coming through your program, that Bill Self had to have been coming about the school. What was your interaction with him like? Oh, wait, he's muted. We got to unmute him. 1 second.
I think, am I good now?
Yes, sir. Yeah, what was Coach Self like when Marquise was being recruited by him?
That's funny. Good question, because I met Bill Self much earlier in my career when I was an assistant coach at Von Steuben. And he was coming, and this name is a throwback. He was coming in the gym a lot to see Angel Santiago. I don't know if you remember that name.
Wow.
Yeah. So Bill Self,
Man,
when he first left Illinois, this was when he first left Illinois and got the job at Kansas. He was coming up to visit Von Steuben quite a bit. So I did get to meet Bill Self. I mean, as smooth and as cool as the other side of the pillow. I mean, just personable, knows how to associate with people of all cultures, and you know what I mean? Just really super personable, super cool dude, Bill Self. Never really got to meet him in the process with Marquise. I dealt with his assistant, James Howard, mostly. But Bill Self, super cool guy, super smooth, very personable.
Yeah, he is. He is cool dude, though. Like, Bill Self is really, really cool.
I was looking through some 2001 footage. I talked to Corey Bradford, great Illini guard, yesterday. So I was looking through that 2001 season, and there's this clip. Coach Self comes out of the locker room by himself, orange blazer, like polka dot tie, comes out, and there's this guy and like this 6'8" guy, probably a recruit, in the front row as he's walking out. And it was like a no-look dap up. He was just like flawlessly executed. He was on a mission. And I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life right there. He just had it. So cool. Well, we could probably go on for days about the recruiting piece. Do you guys have anything else to add, or should we move on to the next topic?
We can move on.
We can move on.
Absolutely.
Coaches pay. This is a big hot button issue. Not just in Chicago and in Illinois, all across the country. I remember when I was in Montana at the beginning of my career, talking to coaches, and they were like, we calculated it, and we make 13 cents or something an hour. You know, if you divide our stipend over the amount of hours that we put into this. What is the state of payment for coaches, and what's a realistic solution you think there is to solving that problem?
I think I go first. I kind of then got away from the pay because I'm not doing it for that anymore. You know, should we get paid more? Definitely, and it should be a larger amount. Some of us have been really successful doing this stuff. Numerous of hours away from our families, you know, taking care of other people's families pretty much, you know, helping them to be successful young men besides basketball. You know, going off to college for free and just being great people, period. So, of course, are we underpaid? Yes. You know, anybody going to do anything about it? Probably no. You know, so for me, and I'm pretty sure these guys too, because they know we're doing this solely out of our heart. You know, that's what this is about. This is about out of our heart. We're passionate about what we do. We love children. We love the game of basketball. We're doing this solely out of our heart, because if not, I'm pretty sure, I mean, even when TAP first started, if this wasn't it, and Taylor too, we'd have left. We could have just tried to do something in college or something if it was about the pay.
Right.
You know, we all want to make more money. We all want to do those type of things, and I get that, and I'm fine with that too, because if they came tomorrow and said we getting a raise, I'm going to be the first one to stand up for it. But I just think that at this stage in most of our careers, it's more about us helping these young men get off to college. At this point, you know, we've been crying about pay, you know, for a while, and we're still in the same boat. So to keep, you know, talking about it and trying to get it to, it's just not happening. So you got to be doing it out of your heart. I mean, I know everybody, we probably spend more money than we get throughout the year.
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, so for me at this point, it's solely doing it for out the heart. But like I say, if they came tomorrow and said we was getting a raise, I ain't gonna tell them to leave my stipend the same way.
Yeah. The thing I say is for the love of the game. You know, I love the game. Love coaching the game. So, you know, I forgot about the money anyway. You know what we get, because at the end of the day, I take that check and give it to my 2 daughters, and let them go buy what they want with it anyway. So, you know, I do it out the love of my heart and for the kids. You know, I'm all about giving back to the kids and being there for them. Should we get paid more? Absolutely. You know, because it's a 24-hour job. It ain't just like we doing it, coaching for 2 hours out the day, then your job is over. We still got to monitor their grades. We still got to monitor them on the court. We still got to help them get into college. So it's a number of things that we have to do. And you know, the money piece it's not, I don't even think about it no more. You know, some of us go longer than others and they still get the same pay we get. We you know, everybody on here played on the last day of basketball, so they know how I feel. You know, it's coaches, you know, playing just the conference games and then doing what they do. But at the end of the day, I don't get caught up in none of that. You know, when I was talking to my mom and dad about me coaching high school basketball, and my dad said, you know, it ain't no money in this. You know, it ain't no money in this. And I could hear my mom say, you know, you're doing it for the kids anyway. You know, when it's, you know, your time will come where you probably go on to college and make you some money. But right now on the high school stage, it's not about the money. It's about helping these kids get into college, helping these kids be successful in life. You know, turn them from boys to young men before they get there. So, you know, that's my approach to it. Like Rob said, should we get more? Absolutely. But it is what it is at this point. And, you know, maybe, you know, later on down the line, you know, we talking about it on here, it helped the next up and coming coach to get a good stipend. But as of right now, you know, the advice I give to everybody is just do it out for the love of the game and do it out your heart, and helping these kids get to where they have to go.
So I think the question is, should we make more money? The answer to the question is yes. Do our coaches paid what their value is? Without question, they're not. I think when we look at it from a very real standpoint, if we look at our counterparts across the state, we are probably in CPS for sure. We're at the lowest realm of the ladder on pay. And when you look at the jobs that we have to do and the facilities and all of the other wraparounds that go into coaching, we probably have the least of all people. But then to what Rob and I'm sure what Tone will say and what Nick has said, if you're coaching in CPS, or really for that matter, in most places, you're not coaching for the money. But would we like to get more money? Of course we would. I think that the bigger problem, if we wanted to peel back the layers, we find the real problem. I think people view athletics as something just a throwaway. You know, oh, they're coaching basketball or they're coaching baseball, when in actuality, there's very few people within the building that have more impact on students than do coaches. You know, but we don't respect the position. And I understand why we oftentimes don't respect it. Sometimes we don't respect it because we have budget deficits, or we're running tight budgets, and we're saying, well, who is the person that we can give the least amount of money to and they still show up? Coaches. So it never really becomes a real legitimate argument, because think about it. It's kind of like teachers, so to speak. Even though teachers don't make the money that they should, when we say that teachers are very valuable, you know, they don't make the money that they should, but we know they're going to show up. Why? Because they love teaching. So when you have people that love what they do, in some ways you take advantage of them. And I'm not saying it's purposeful, but it just happens that way. you kind of think about it, and this is the way I look at it, and I don't know about others. I don't coach for money, because at the end of the day, when my stipend check arrives on my check, is it a bump? Of course it is. But is it enough to really do anything substantive? Without question, it's not. But it's a token to say thank you. You look today, just in the environment that we're in now, look at what we pay nurses. Look at what we pay grocery store workers. I spent 20 years in the grocery business. These are essential workers. You're telling me coaches are not essential workers in the context of and by no means am I trying to equate coaches with people that are working in the midst of a pandemic. But if we look at it in the school environment, if you took coaches out of a lot of these schools, good coaches, where would those segment of young people be? You look today, how many students actually have legitimate relationships with their chemistry teacher when they graduate? Mostly none of them. They just remember their name. How many of these young athletes that go on to college have relationships with their coaches once their graduation from high school has ended? A great deal of them. Why? Because they had profound impact in their lives. And so my thing is, why do we pay the people that are impacting our young people the greatest? Why do we pay them the least amount of money? Why do we give them the least amount of support to be able to do the things they do? Why do we bridle? Why do we saddle them with the greatest level of scrutiny and the greatest number of rules and prohibitive things? I look at coaches that coach in inner cities. We look at our state, and this is not the pay question, but it's kind of part and parcel. We have 25 contact days. To a kid on the west side of Chicago, invariably, that coach probably needs to be involved with that student 365 days, not simply to make him a better basketball or football or track player, but to help him stay alive, to help to keep him on course. When you look at the graduation rate amongst athletes and the college acceptance of athletes in high school to college, I would imagine in most schools, it supersedes that of the actual graduating class by rate. The people that coach these people are the lowest paid people in the building from a standpoint of stipend. And I'm not, and again, a lot of them may be teachers, a lot of them may do other things, but when we look at what we pay them, and this is across the board, the money does not equal the importance of the job. And again, we don't do it for the money, but you tell me any one of us that goes home to our wife or our significant other and say, baby, I really love coaching. Oh, and by the way, here's my stipend. My wife never looks at the stipend the way I look at it. She looks at it as curtains. She looks at it as blinds, as other things. And what she realizes, the stipend does not provide any of those things.
Right.
But we love the game.
Coach David, how about you? What's kept you in this? Right, we got to unmute you.
Okay.
I got into this to become rich. I don't know about these guys. I got into this for the money. It's not working out, though. Let me be the first to tell you. It's not working out. No, I'm just kidding. All jokes aside, I'm just going to, be the fourth wheel and saying exactly what the other three coaches just said. Like, there's no way in hell that you come into public league coaching and your goal is to make money or to expand your portfolio or something like that. That's not what people coach in the public league. You do it out of love for the game, and you do it out of love for wanting to help young people. And that's it. That is it. Those are the two reasons that I coach basketball, is because I love the game of basketball, and I love helping young people reach their goals and define what those goals are, and try to help them, figure out how to get there. That's it. That's all.
And here's another thing. How much does it cost to go to Illinois? How much does it cost to go to Duke? How much it costs to go to North Carolina? We giving them kids and they family a scholarship, saving them money. So we working that hard to get these kids into college. And, we ain't getting nothing. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it is what it is.
And to your point, Nick, it ain't even the Dukes and the North Carolina. It's not those. It's your 13th man. You finding him a school to go to.
There you go.
Preschool. That could be a life-changing experience for a kid.
It may not be a Division I, but at the end of the day, you know that, hey, this kid is a senior. I got to find somebody to take him to go to school for free.
Exactly.
So it's not like, okay, well, you got Adam and you got Marcus, and I'm only going to deal with them. Right. That's the easy part. It's other kids that it's like, man, I gotta sell myself and the program and him on somebody else.
True.
So that he can go to college for free too. Right. So those are things that I don't know if people kind of get, because when you don't do those, then you're a bad coach.
Yeah.
You're a bad coach when everybody is not going to school, so I don't know if they understand that in our roles or what we, became to be or what we're trying to do or how we're trying to do it. It's not just like, okay, we got these 5-star or 4-star athletes, I'm going to deal with them, and everybody else, you just go by the wayside. That's not it. So, hey, I know it's some people that's probably, they really upset about the pay. They really are. At one point, we sat here upset about the pay until we kind of realized what it was and what it was about and how it's going to go,
Yeah. But what I'll say though, one of the things I'm upset about with the pay, I'm upset with those guys that do half of what we do and get the same thing that we get. I'm upset about guys, and not because they're lacking in what they do, but they're lacking in what they give to the young people. When you look at guys that are basically engaged in basketball 365 days of the year, even when not coaching, trying to find ways to elevate not just their teams, but their players. And then we have guys who, when you look at their schedules, they play the minimal amount of games. They practice the least amount of time possible. And their kids are going to college at a rate that's far inferior to light schools and light programs around. That's insulting to me as a coach when I look up and he's making the same small stipend that I'm making. What I would suggest is that guy gets out of the game, allows someone else to get in that at least has the passion to coach, and then they can get the same stipend. Or you can return a portion of your stipend so all those other guys can equitably share in your misgivings. Because again, at the end of the day, and mind you, it doesn't bother me because I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and as well all these coaches and most coaches are going to do what they're going to do because they love coaching. But it is insulting for people to play around with the possibilities of young people, and they do it strictly to get a check. And that's not just with basketball. That's with any sport. These young people go through too much now to have their lives played with for the purpose of getting paid, even though it's not a lot. But, and I'll leave it on this. I tell people, if someone comes to me and they want to paint my house, and I know my house is a big house, not that my house is, but if I have a big house and I believe that I've got 3 prices and everybody says I can paint your house for $10,000, and one man comes and says, "Okay, I'll paint your house for $1,000." My expectation, if I take you for $1,000, even though it's a $10,000 job, you give me a $10,000 paint job. That's the same thing I say to coaches. Don't say that I don't make that much money, so I'm only going to kind of coach. No, these young people deserve a $10,000 coaching job, even for $1,000 payment. And so we need to really focus on why we do what we do. And we'll deal with behind the scenes and however we have to deal with and have those very difficult conversations about trying to get pay increases. But the reality of it is we've been fighting this fight for a long time, and we've pretty much been knocked out every time we step in the ring. So those of us that coach, we do it for the love of the game, not for the money that comes with it, I don't think.
And the way we run up and down the sideline and
strategize. You run up and down the side. No, the way you run up and down the
sideline. Getting on the officials.
I don't run up and down the sideline.
Man, we'll think we get $1 million, man.
I've seen that viral clip. Nick's like the 6th man on defense there. He had his hands up. He was sliding the hips.
Oh, man, they'd be like, "Man, Nick, you getting paid. How much your stipend, man? You get $1 million." No, man. You getting peanuts.
Yeah.
And the other thing, you're talking to, 3 guys that run extremely successful high school basketball programs. So the time they're spending, probably, I'm just assuming here, taking a stab in the dark, the time they're spending making sure that the program stays at that elite level, you know, players coming in to keep the program at that level, you know, dealing with college coaches, dealing with parents of, you know, so it's a lot of time that goes into running a really successful program, as opposed to running a mediocre program, or running even a pretty good program where every year you win because you got a big school and you got some talent every now and then. That, you know, it's a I don't want to say a 24/7 job, but it's a job that requires time and attention far beyond the 2 or 3 hours that you spend in practice, far beyond the 2 or 3 hours that you spend on game day, right? It goes way beyond that. It's hours upon hours. And so the pay, you know, just pales in comparison to the time and the effort that people put in at programs like this. I don't know about other programs, but I've been watching these three for a long time. And, you know, I can only imagine what they're doing, because I know what I'm doing and I'm not on their level. I know the work I'm putting in and the hours I'm spending, and I'm not on their level. So I can only imagine, you know, so that's another aspect.
But to your point, and so people don't become jaded about what's going on. Success doesn't mean you have to win 13 state championships. So let's not become disillusioned that the only reason we've been successful is because we won 13 state championships, 14 with Tone. No, success comes in a multitude of ways. It comes in a multitude of ways. When you take a young man or a young woman that was headed down the wrong direction and you can redirect them into a positive direction, that's a good program. When you get kids that go from high school that weren't really thinking about college, and like Coach Rob said, it's not always going to be Duke and Kentucky and Kansas, but it can be some of the Division III, the Division IIs, or just go to college in general. That's successful. That's what successful programs look like. And so there are a lot of those programs out there. And for me, I'm concerned about those programs that are not even focused on trying to do that. That's what my concern would be. Those people should never talk about getting paid. They should be talking about paying to coach versus being paid to coach.
This is awesome, guys. We could go on for so much longer. And one thing, you know, we would not be doing our jobs if we didn't talk about the most important thing in all of our lives right now that's much bigger than basketball, which is the Ahmaud Arbery situation in Georgia. What are the conversations like that you've had with your players since that incident and around that topic in general? Because every basketball team in America is dealing with that in some way, shape, or form right now.
Ty, that's your thing.
Well, and let me just say this: as a 55-year-old African American man, and again, this is not painful to talk about. It's unfortunate that we have to talk about it. A conversation that I had as a young boy was how I had to deal with both police and being in places that was perceived as places that people of color should not be, or just the fact that I was an African American and there's a subsection of people that are just not going to like me because I'm an African American. I think one of the things that I talk about with our guys, and I think that most of us on this podcast today, our teams travel. So a lot of times we find ourselves in foreign places. We're not always in the comforts of Chicago. So I always talk to our guys about how they carry themselves in trying to make sure that they stay in a position that keeps them away from the potential for trouble. Now, you say that, and we look at a young man like Arbery who was jogging. Do we know what happened before that? We don't. But what we do know is what the end result was, and there's nothing about what we saw that should determine or that should cause him to no longer be in the land of the living. So as easy as it is to say do the right thing, sometimes just being a young man and being African American is the wrong thing. So for me, and this is a question that America has to grapple with. At what point do we decide that we're going to view people as our equal, in spite of how our personal feelings are? You cannot, as an individual, see what we saw and get to the point that we believe the outcome should have been what the outcome was. And like I said, I don't know what happened before that. But short of the fact that you meet me in the midst of me jogging, and then we are confronted, and before it's all said and done, my life has come to an end. In America, we've seen this far too many times. We can no longer, and I heard someone on one of the shows say, man, they just can't believe it. That's not true. That's not true. You can believe it because it goes on all the time.
That's the problem.
It's like it goes on all the time. I tell people, it's like with us as coaches, when we practice on something in practice all week long for the big game, and then the game takes place, and so-and-so goes out there and they blow the play and they blow the assignment, and we turn to our assistants and say, man, we cannot believe X, Y, Z did that. I tell my coaches, yes, you can, because he did it in practice all week. And that's the same thing that we're viewing in America now in relations to how young Black and brown boys are being treated. When I look at Michigan, and there are men standing in the state capitol entrance with long guns and machine guns and AR-50s or whatever those rifles are, yelling in the faces of policemen, and we just stand there. But young Black and brown boys with nothing are being shot down in the street. It's time for America to wake up and decide that we can no longer, this is not the best of America. This is not making America great again. This is making America hateful. That's what this is.
Yeah, what are the conversations that you guys have had around this for the other three?
Well, the thing I always tell my players, just be mindful, the places you be. Don't put yourself in bad situation. Don't put yourself in harm's way, because you never know what'll happen, and, the Arbery situation, all I see is him running and jogging. That's the only thing I see. And, it's unfortunate what happened to him. I don't wish that on no one, any race. I don't wish that on anyone. And, it's a lot of things going on around here, but at the end of the day, you just be safe and, just stay in places that you belong. Don't go into places where you probably shouldn't be. That's
but Nick, and again, very rarely do we have dissent, but we have to dissent on that. Where in America do we not belong? When you think about it, where do we not belong? I don't belong in someone else's house. Okay, yeah, I don't belong in someone else's car, but on a public way, I belong there. Right. Trayvon Martin, he belonged where he was. He's dead. Amir Rice, he belonged where he was. He's dead. I mean, we that's, to me, part and parcel of the problem. There are people that have this belief that we don't belong in certain places. You go back and you look now, you have Black men barbecuing in a park. The police are called on them. It's a park. I mean, what are we talking about? We have people, you have Black boys that go to different malls, or you're a Black man, you've experienced it. You walk across the street, the lady locks her door. You don't want to rob her. Shit, I tell people when I see some people, I lock my door. I mean, please, come on. When I see good-looking ladies, I lock my door because they're all trying to get me. I don't want them to get me. So I lock my door. I don't want to get me. But very real. We cannot have the attitude that there are places we don't belong. If it's legal and it's public, you belong. As long as you're following the rules to be there, why should you have to fear that you may not make it home because someone will shoot you? And then, and not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but then the next argument will be—
No, you're doing a good job, sir. Go ahead, keep going.
No, I mean, the Black and brown boys are being shot in their community, so you'll have a segment of society that'll say, well, they have crime in their own community. Okay, well, we do, and we're dealing with that in our community. Nobody wakes up and says, man, I just hope that we get some more people shot and killed in our community. Nobody wants that. We're dealing with that. But those unfortunate parts of where we are today in society. But in some of these other instances, they're not being killed because of anything other than the fact it's the color of their skin. It doesn't make it better. It doesn't make it worse. They're both bad. But in America, what we know we don't see is Black men shooting white boys. That doesn't go on anywhere in the world. And if it were happening, white America would not just pass this off as another unfortunate incident. That's my position.
He summed it.
I knew it. I knew you was gonna have a lot to say, and that really ain't it.
No, it ain't.
That's it. That's it. I'm done.
I just tell my players, just go where you're supposed to go.
And that's probably the Morgan Park to the gym. That's
just go where you're supposed to go.
Morgan Park to the gym. Yeah, it's a tough situation.
Rob, what's your take?
It's an unfortunate situation. I mean, we go through enough in our own communities to have to deal with it outside of our communities as well. And that's my biggest thing about it. As Ty said, we should be able to go wherever we want to go. And we should be, I mean, as long as you're not breaking in nobody's houses, you're not stealing their cars or things like that, you should be able to go wherever you want to go. I mean, and do the things that you're supposed to be doing. So my biggest thing is it's just unfortunate somebody had to lose their life in a situation like that. And that's not good. And for our players, they have to understand it and look at those things and look into them in perspective, you know, so they can know these type of things. I mean, those are other things that we have to, you know, educate them on as well. Yes. You know, and like Ty said, we travel a lot, so we're in small towns sometimes, you know, and they have to definitely be mindful of are you just running over to the gas station, you know, and it's four black young men leaving from the hotel to run over to the gas station, which this community hardly ever sees, you know, and they don't know that they in a hotel playing a basketball game. They just see 4 black young men running over to a gas station, you know. So those things are stuff that we have to do when we're on the road. Hey, there is no leaving, you know. If we go, we're all going. You know, it's no sideways where 2 gonna run and you're gonna go, because a lot of times we are in smaller towns and it's probably not that many African Americans in the town, if there are any in the town. So they're not used to seeing that. So it's a lot of things that we talk about at the beginning of the year about when we're going to the airport, you know, how you're supposed to conduct yourself inside of the airport and all those type of things. That stuff is real important for us to know. Now, some teams don't get a chance to travel or they don't travel like that, so they're not having those, you know, those conversations. But there's things that we definitely have to have with those young men so they can understand what's going on. And they have to be up with current events, you know, about this stuff. It's not just us. They need to be knowing and seeing what's going on in current events as well. So, I mean, it's funny to me because it's crazy because it happened in February, and I thought it just recently happened. I didn't know until it came out wide that that was happening. Then my other take on it, and it kind of lies into what Ty said, Shannon Brown shot in the air at his house. He was arrested on the spot. The other young man, the other 2 shot and killed somebody, and they were still out. And both places happened in Georgia. So I don't know, you know, I don't know their laws. I don't know anything, but he shot in the air at his house, where he claimed that he thought that these 2 people was breaking in his house. His house was for sale, but he claimed he thought that they were breaking in. So he shot in the air to, you know, get them out or whatever. And he was arrested on that day. And they killed that young man, and it took a while for them to arrest him. I just don't, I mean, that's a little different right there, you know? So that kind of throws people into thinking like, why is it so different, you know? But I'm not a judge, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know all the particulars to both situations or anything like that. I just think that it's unfortunate, you know, at this time where we at, you know, we're still having this going on, especially, you know, with everything that's
It's on you, DT.
Oh man, this is a multi-layered issue, and it's a historical issue. It's a modern issue, and the only reason it's a modern issue is because everyone can whip out their phone and take a video of what happens. Everyone can whip out their, you know, whatever they use to take the video. And so a lot of these situations are getting documented today, whereas, you know, in the 70s, maybe even the 80s, definitely not in the 60s, because the technology just wasn't there. People couldn't walk around with some sort of video component in their pocket, right? So, you know, now it's being shown and it's being caught and it's being you know, visible to everybody, right? And it's all too often. It's happening a lot. It's frequent. But people are misinterpreting the frequency. This has been happening to this level of frequency, maybe more. But people just didn't have the, you know, the technology to whip out and start videotaping this. Like the saddest part of it is that what it teaches young black men, young black boys that are growing up, to me, what it shows them is that, like Ty said and Rob said, be fearful and know where you're going, even though that's something we shouldn't have to consider. You know, be careful and don't, you know, when you're talking to police officers, don't threaten them. You know, be nice, dumb down your conversation. Don't be so, you know, oppositional, things like that. And these are things that only black men have to consider when they walk out of their door every day. White women don't have to consider this. White men don't have to consider this. To a degree, black women don't even have to consider this, what I'm talking about. Like, I'm leaving the house. As a black man, am I gonna return to the house at the end of the day? And I didn't set out to do anything negative, no crime. I'm not a bad person. I got a decent life. And every single time we leave where we, you know, rest is a risk. And that's dangerous. Like, how are we out here living in a world in 2020 where it's still dangerous for human beings to leave their home every day? That is absurd and insane to me, you know, and that's my position on it. I can go on and on about, you know, what we got to do to try to remedy it. But you know, that's opinion, and you know, that can take a long time. But just at its very root, black men are still under attack. We have been under attack for centuries. I'm sorry, I meant decades. But you know, it's not ending. You know what I'm saying? It's not ending. These incidents are still happening far too often with far too much frequency. And it's just teaching young black boys to be fearful of white men and things like that. And we shouldn't have to live that way or believe those things, you know, at this point in history.
And to go back off what Ty and Tone is saying, it's like, so now we're fearful of our own people and white people, you know, and where does that end? You know what I'm saying? Ty made a valuable point. We need to deal with our own people. Let us be the ones to try to. That's why we're in these positions that we're in now as coaches. We're trying to model that so they can understand that, hey, this is the way you should be. This is how this should go. But then when they go to other places and people treat them a certain way, then they come back to us like, well, man, they don't respect me anyway. You know, they're not giving me the respect. You're telling me to do this and act this way. But when I get to that point, it's still some people, not all, that still treat me how you said it wouldn't happen if I conducted myself this way. You know, so I've seen it coaching sometimes. I have. I'm not going to go away from it. I have. In some places that we was at, some other things I've seen it. And for me, somebody who's, you know, I can handle myself, I'm going to address it with them. I'm not letting it just slide past with me because I know I didn't do anything wrong. You know, and I'm not going to get aggressive with you, but I'm going to let you know that, hey, this is not, you can't talk to me any kind of way. You can't say certain things to me because I didn't do anything to you for you to talk to me that way or look at me that way. You know, for a long time, I mean, and guys know, I didn't even let the kids wear braids or anything like that because of that. But that was a thing, like, why should they have to go away from their culture for somebody to respect them? You know, so it was like, hey, make sure you got a nice haircut, make sure you got a lining, because we're going to be in these things. You don't want nobody to perceive you as being, you know, blah, 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 or whatever. And you looked up to par. So that gave you a little bit of a piece, you know. But some people, it was their culture to wear braids, to have long hair. And I'm taking that away from them to satisfy some other people who still look down at them anyway. You know, so those are the things that we go through. And I said again, it ain't all braces. It's not. I mean, I got some friends that's Caucasians that I'm really close with, that I talk to on a regular basis, who understand what's going on. You know, they really do. They might be in the fight of trying to change it, but it's just hard for young black men right now to understand that. And like I say, when they think they're doing right, and that young man is just jogging, and like Ty said, we don't know, everybody said, we don't know what happened before that, but all we see is the jogging part. So that's all we can see, is that part. So they looking like, man, this man just jogging and they just killed him. We still in the same thing. But it's just something that we're dealing with, and hopefully we can get it changed. That's all we can do, is hope we can get it changed and keep educating our players, and our communities on what should be going right. And that's all I think that we can do.
That's the point where it come back to our job never stops, because we got to teach them. We got to teach them everything, on and off the court. So it just don't stop there. It's times we going to play in certain places, and they like, why we got to do this, or why we got to wear these sweatsuits. It got to a point where I say, you know what, wear what you want to wear. Wear, if you comfortable with it, wear it. That's how I look at it now. And, it's this job don't stop. And, if you didn't have the right guys explain it to the kids, it'd be a problem. It'd be a big problem. And, you just gotta, just keep explaining to them and talking to them, and hopefully they get it one day. Hopefully they get it, and all this stuff could move on, and we all could come together as one.
I'll say this. I have the great fortune of coaching at a school where we have different nationalities on our teams across the board. And it is really, it's kind of, and in my program, we don't see black or white. We just don't. We laugh, we joke, we talk about it. We talk about it instructively. We talk about it, about all the things they, as players, their friends, their brothers, whatever the case may be. And there was an instance that we had a couple of years ago where it was the most surreal thing that I could ever. It was more than a couple of years ago. I guess it was many years ago. We were going to a retreat in Indiana, up in Indiana. We were staying at like a retreat. We had rented a cabin, and we were going to have a weekend retreat, and we were taking these. So we had to go down these dark roads, and our bus driver got lost. And we were in Indiana, off the beaten path. And the next thing we know, there were lights behind our bus. And so I'm sitting in the first seat of mine. Coaches are in the adjoining seats around me, and some of the kids on the bus start saying, "Oh, SHIT, this is effed up." I'm like, "Oh, what are y'all talking about? They're gonna kill us." I said, "What are y'all talking about? What do you mean they're gonna kill us?" And I thought at first they were joking, but some of the kids were, because it was a very dark off-road situation, and at this time Marcus Jordan was on our team. True story. And so the bus driver opens the door, the police, the state trooper, whatever he was, he comes to the door and he kind of looks in, and he basically says, "Are you guys lost?" I don't know whether that was a helpful question, or if it was, "Are you young African Americans lost?" But we had some whites on the team also. We kind of explained to them what was going on. We turned the inside lights on the bus so they could see through the bus. We explained to where we were going. We gave him our paperwork. So he said, "Okay, I'll show you guys where it is." So we got there, and eventually we told him who we were, what we were doing. He said, "Okay, fine, but you guys just look lost." Okay, fine. We got there, but once all the kids got together, we had a campfire that night, and we talked about a lot of different things. And a couple of our white players, they were completely stunned at what had just taken place. They couldn't believe that the black kids were actually saying the things they were saying, and they didn't understand why. And then as we talked about it, and as a year went on, and I think a couple of those players wound up being there a couple of years, and we continued to travel, they started looking at things in a different way as whites, to understanding how, as blacks, some of them have had to live their lives under the fear of a policeman, where they look at the police as, "Man, this guy's here to help us." That's the way most whites look at it. I promise you, the coaches in New Trier and Glenbrook and those places, they never have to have these conversations with their players. But we do when we coach African-American boys. And then we say, "Thank God they had it on tape." Well, that's not really a thank God, because they had it on tape in February. They had the tape, and they still saw fit to let them go. So this is just, you know, we'll never get to the answer today or tomorrow. But the fact is that all of us as coaches are aware of the things that go on with our young African-American boys, and we have to continue to talk to them about it, as well as I'm sure their families. But think about this, though, Gordon. When we talk about coaching, we talk about pay. I promise you that my counterparts that make dramatically more than we do, these are not even a part of when they think about basketball, this probably never comes up. It just never comes up. Why? Because unfortunately, in 2020, we're still dealing with some of the same issues that we dealt with in 1965, in 1970, and you know, and not to beat up on an old conversation. And we talked about Black coaches. It continues to be a deficiency and a void in all of these things. That's why when we have strong Black brothers like that are on this screen today, and many, many more, just not these guys, there's many of us out there, we need to continue to grow our ranks. We need to continue to work hard, educating our guys on not just basketball, but on life itself. And that's why I'm just proud to be a part of this very great fraternity of our coaches, really.
And you know, it's such a privilege to get to listen, and that's kind of my mode in these situations, is because I am not going through the same experience. And so I've flipped my switch to permanent listening mode, because I think that's the best way for me to understand. And you know, I can't speak to a specific racial group, but I can speak to Christians. I'm a believer in the gospel changes our view of these situations, and it has radically changed my view of this situation. The reason is because God has nothing in common with me. I'm made in his image, and he loves me. But, you know, he's God, and I'm little old me. And yet he cares deeply about my little issues. And that is the model that radically changed my life. And so, you know, I'm just speaking to the believers that are watching this, but this radically informs how I should treat my fellow brothers and sisters. Meaning, their issues are my issues, and I need to care about this. It might not affect me, you know, on a physical level, but if I've been radically transformed by that love of the God of the universe who cares about my issues, that means that my brother's issues are now my issues, because I need to mirror that same relationship here horizontally on earth. And so to that extent, I'm not Black, in case you guys didn't know.
Oh man, you could have fooled me.
A lot of people think that.
I'm stunned.
This whole time.
But I just want to say that these are my issues, and that if I have been loved by God, these are not your issues. These are our issues, and that's my stance. And I hope that everybody else that professes the same faith that I do that's listening to this thinks that, because I think that's what we're called to. So. And
the good book says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that that's not the way others would have us do unto them. So.
Absolutely. 1000%.
Gordon, you do a great job, man. You do an excellent job. You know, I read a comment where somebody was talking like, you know, why you don't have other coaches from here or other coaches from there, or we got this downstate, this and that. But at the end of the day, the thing I want to say thanks to you about, you cover everybody. You know, you cover, you know, Central Illinois, you covered, you know, the city of Chicago, you cover a lot of places, and you generally care about people. You know, you care about people, and you know, you're a great person. You know, because I know you're outside of this. You're all around great person, and you respect everybody's opinion. And you know, I just want to say thank you for listening and helping us, you know, build a good platform that we got right here.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
That means a lot.
And to piggyback on what Nick is saying is, you're helping other people get a chance to view us as people and what we go through. I mean, and what we're dealing with, period. And some people don't know us, and they probably starting to get to know us a little bit just because of this. You know, it's not many people could call me and have me do this. This is not what I do. I'm just being. So when Nick first texted me and Ty, and we got on the thing, and I was like, well, you know, if you fine with doing it, then it should be cool. You know, it's not, you know, because there's a lot of people that I just wouldn't do this with. And not the people that's on here. I'm just saying just any type of, you know, outside people of my circle that I would just be giving you my whole, everything I do, almost my playbook, you know, and what I think and what I believe in. And because that's sacred stuff to us. That's sacred stuff to us, really, you know. But how would people know if we're not on this platform to be able to say it, you know? Because I know they want to know, what are they thinking, you know, in this situation? You know, and those things. And this gives us that platform. And when I talked to Nick and Ty about the next person to come on, it was like, let's just give that person, which is Coach Taylor, his day. You know what I'm saying? Because we could have kept Mike. This started with us three, and then we said we would add people, but let's give that person their day. You know, because if we keep adding and adding, we had 25 people on the thing, but to be able to come on with us and talk and give us his moment, you know. And again, before we get off, I want to thank him because it was a last minute call, and he was like, whatever, I got you. Just tell me the time, send me the information. I'm on. I'll piece out some time for you, and we can just go ahead and do it. And thank you for even considering me to do it. You know, because he hadn't even, when I talked to him, he hadn't even saw it or heard of what we were doing yet.
What? What is going on here? I heard it. Oh my God.
We were right after last day on Sunday.
On social media. So if he ain't on social media, he wouldn't know. You know, but that's that. But I just, you know, Gordon, I really appreciate you even doing this. You know, it is a good thing. I'm pretty sure we've had some good reviews. We've probably had some bad reviews. We probably had some in-between reviews. You know, but just for you to even think about putting this on is huge for us. I mean, it's a good thing for us.
That means a lot. I'm the privileged one. I'm so lucky to get the chance to get to know you guys personally, and I view this as totally a privilege. I mean, I'm the lucky one here, so I thank you for saying thank you, but I think I'm the one that owes you a thank you.
Well, I know for me, Gordon, I'll say two things that are really important. One, I don't want people that listen to the podcast to feel sorry for us, because we don't want anybody to feel sorry for us. Mm-hmm. What we want to do is we want to have a candid conversation about the things that move us. That's really what we want to do. We're not asking for anybody, I feel so, no. They're no, you know, like you say, you got 13, 14 state championships here. There's no pity party to be had. But what we also want people to know is that, like Coach Rob said, this is who we are. I know that many people don't have an opportunity to see us for what we are. This is kind of who we are. You know, if we weren't on this, we would be using different words maybe to say some things or whatever. But this is who we are. And we're not just basketball coaches. We're not just basketball coaches. We are really shapers of young men. That's what we do. We shape young men. I think that when we look at the athletic part, we look at the social part, we look at all of the things that go into it, all of those wraparounds, we are engaged in those, like Nick says, every single day. And we want people to know that. The other thing that we want is, Gordon, we want you to go and get us one of our white brethren from downstate. Put him in the other square. Let's have a conversation. It's not adversarial, because there's some things that we may not know about downstate Illinois that, boy, we were confused about. Let's talk about them. There might be some things that they're confused about with us. Let's talk about it. But the one thing that we do know is that sport and basketball will oftentimes bring us all together, and it makes for a tremendous conversation. And for me, if you guys kick me off, I don't know what I'll do. I have nothing to do on Saturday. So I have to be on here. I've got to be on the show.
Hey, one thing I will say is that, you know, I grew up in the Chicago area, and I really had no experience with downstate Illinois until I went to college. The biggest revelation I've had is that we're all the same. I mean, Decatur, where I live in, is a multiracial community. Champaign, I did not know, very much a multiracial community. Springfield, and so a lot of the same issues that city coaches deal with are the exact same issues that downstate coaches interact. Like Tim Allen, who asked the second question of the mailbag, African-American male, who I would love to have on at some point, got a great heart for his kids. And so, yeah, I think, basketball is amazing, though. It brings people of all colors and backgrounds and regions and economic classes, whatever, brings everybody together. And you guys are the influencers in your communities. And so my life's purpose is to empower you to change your communities. So I this is a thrill for me to get to play a small role in facilitating this.
Yeah, and from my end, again, speaking about the three kings that, I share this time with, they people don't know them. Like, people know them as the head coach at Whitney Young, the head coach at Simeon, the head coach at Morgan Park. And if that's all that has its own, cachet, but they're people, right? And they've got thoughts and things that make them tick. And this is this can bring people closer to coaches and personalities that people only making assumptions about. So this is a wonderful platform.
So do we do a big digital hug, or how does this work?
Social distancing. We can't get too close.
We can reach into the middle.
We can't get too close.
Talk to each other. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, any final thoughts, guys, before we wrap up episode 3, which was probably my favorite episode so far?
Just once again, thanks, and like David, thanks, and Ty and Nick. I guess we'll get Lou on next week if possible, and then after that we'll just start jumping out and trying to grab some other coaches. Ty, that's a good idea to see if we can get somebody from downstate and see if we can move around and get some other people in. Gordon, my other question is how many more people could we add in with me and Ty? What number?
Pretty much unlimited. If we keep the Zoom platform, that's one of the reasons that I really like this platform, is that Facebook and Twitter, they allow you to go up to 4. But with this, I think we can go to like 99 or something like that. So
I want to get that many people, but I'm just saying, we could do 2 more people at a time.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
I just wanted to make sure, because that's the next thing. I think.
I love that. And especially, there are a lot of stories I would like to tackle that you'd have to have multiple people from that team. So, like, if Nick, if you bring Melvin Eli, your great buddy, on, we got to have Ty Streets, on, talk about that Thornton team with Anthony. If we don't have all 3 of those guys, we're not getting the full stories, so. Just as an example. But.
All right, no, that's cool.
Well, great. I look forward to. I'll stay up all night waiting on the download to get on, and then I'll look forward on there. I am so excited.
I got it streamlined. I've got the timeline set up on my other laptop. I'm going to take this video and upload it. It'll be up by tonight. So that's cool. my promise to you guys.
Holy cow!
All right, appreciate you.
Netflix for me tonight.
I'll tell y'all this, listen, first of all, thank y'all for even considering me for this spot. It means a lot to me. The other thing I want to say is, 99 people. I don't know about that one.
Couple at the same time. Let's do it.
But yeah. Thank y'all for even considering me for the spot, man. It was a blast. I had a good time. Anytime y'all, consider me again, I'll be down for it. Great thing, great platform.
We appreciate
you. Oh, and also, this is a really good way to recruit new, listeners, is to put them on the show, because I'm on from now on.
Well, DT, you've been an awesome guest. Really appreciate everything, and looking forward to getting to your campus. I'm in the Uptown area all the time, so I'm gonna have to stop by your gym and.
Oh man, stop by. Yep, stop by the digs. Once we figure all this COVID-19 stuff out, stop by.
We'll go to Tank Noodle on Argyle.
Oh yes, I know about Tank Noodle. I go to Tank. Good stuff. Good food.
So Dave, when he gets edited and everything, then I'll send it to you. I'll send it to your phone so you'll have it.
Man, get on social media, man. Please get your Twitter page.
I'm gonna jump on Twitter.
Yeah, get your Twitter.
Facebook, y'all.
No, I can't do
Facebook.
I'll jump on Twitter though.
From that, and that way. But I send it to you. He sends the link, and I just send it to you, so you'll have it either way.
Okay, appreciate it, Rob.
All right, brother. Be safe, man.